All right, thank you for staying with State of the Nation. We're talking about matters, politics, and everything in between here. Before we go into the on-source revenue collection, this is from the report by the Commission of Revenue Allocation that is backed by the World Bank, showing that county governments collect only 31 billion in taxes annually against their target of 52 billion shillings. And let me read some of your quick feedback on the topic we've just concluded here. Bobo Wino says President William Ruto impromptu visit to both houses of Parliament and Senate shouldn't cause any jitters, especially from Azimio side, because he's a symbol of national unity. You continue to say that ODM is Azimio One Kenya and UDA is Kenya Kwanza. The matter of majority leader of both houses is done and dusted. All right, let's see if we can squeeze in one more here. You call yourself Joachim. Says it is wrong for Cherargei to waive the women gender card concerning Aisha Jumwa. No one is fighting women. In fact, everyone is supporting them. It's integrity and competence issues about Aisha. Senator Cherargei should not mislead the public. 1 minute to respond to that. That this has nothing to do with gender. It's all about suitability and credibility plus public interest and integrity.
You know, Senator Sifuna has made wild allegations. One quick one, I'm not waiving gender card. What I'm just saying is that even if you have a point, there are procedures on how to raise. And I'm happy Senator Sifuna has taken my Solomonic wisdom of raising that matter before Appointments Committee. Secondly, the competence and suitability of Cabinet Secretary Moses Kuria and Aisha Jumwa is the president. There is a lot of things that are done behind the scenes before those nominees are brought. There are agencies that clear them, like the DCI, like EACC Certificate of Good Conduct, filing of tax returns, the KRA. Unless Sifuna tells us that we can sit somewhere in Kawangware and start gossiping and imagine that gossip will form a basis of disqualifying someone. If you're talking about suitability and competence, he should be telling us that there is no DCI clearance of Certificate of Good Conduct, there is no KRA clearance, there is no CRB clearance, there is no EACC clearance. Those are agencies that have been set in place to clear all of us. Even us, when we were running, those were documentation that you present. We can't just use gossip. If you have personal differences between Aisha Jumwa or Moses Kuria with you, those are things you can resolve elsewhere. But I think the president, with his wisdom, ensure that he has nominated the best for this country. And I can assure you, most of my prediction, the best performing dockets will be of Aisha Jumwa and Moses Kuria. And I'm happy that Senator Sifuna will be. You remember Sifuna had said at one point that if William Ruto wins the presidency, he will relocate to another country. But I'm happy he has decided to remain around to see how government is being run. And I'm happy that he has taken the advice of the president that they do a very rigorous oversight and ensuring that they take government to accountability. And I agree with him to that far. But let us move on, allow the government. By the way, Sifuna will agree with me that there is a high cost of living, there is the public debt distress, there is many challenges, food issues, drought. So if now the opposition are objective formation of government, how will government start running and ensuring that we fix the cost of living, we fix the debt distress, we fix the issue of CBC, we fix all these challenges that we are facing? Yeah. So I want to ask the opposition that they should allow government to move, let these cabinet ministers start their job, then they can now criticize based on the policies that are brought on the table.
All right.
You know,
yeah.
just a quick one. I think we need to move to the other discussion on revenue.
Yes,
is of a lot much more importance to the country, and also especially to me as a governor. But just two quick things that are important to clarify, because we risk leaving our viewers with a split mind, and sometimes think that we have stated things precisely the way they are, and especially because Sifuna has tried to be very persuasive about what he was saying, but not necessarily factually correct. Because, number one, on that question of Aisha Jumwa and suitability and so on, and any other person, I believe some of the pointers that he may be using, plus others on his side, maybe to pick out. Aisha probably is because she has a pending matter in court, and if you look at people with such allegations, they are all over on both sides of the coalition. If you asked Sifuna how many people were elected back to the National Assembly and to Senate from the Azimio side, who have matters that are yet to be determined, who have allegations all over, including pending with the DCI, with EACC, in courts of law, they're numerous. What we uphold all the time is the principle of the presumption of innocence, all the time when we, because that's the law of the land. That's how we lead this country. And I believe, as we said the last time here, what should happen is that whoever has a matter pending in any of our institutions that determine the integrity of a person, that will also determine the suitability of a person, and I would agree with him to a large extent that suitability is not a matter that you may not necessarily be able to litigate it. But there are other institutions that also determine that. That's why we have all those other arms or agencies of government. The point to make here is not unless there is a conclusive process in either of those agencies or our courts of law that determine the fate of a person as prescribed in our law. That's then when you can judge somebody to be either of the three that he claimed. Right. And so if, for example, my personal view of you, Trevor, is that, because of either my presumption on some allegations that you have, I find that you're not capable, you're not suitable, or you don't have integrity. That remains my view. Yeah. But what you need to apply all the time in determining the fate of that person currently on any endeavor they may be undertaking is what the law says. Okay. And then, my friend Sifuna, I think if the balanced view that you advance, because you said that there are some whom you would vouch for and say this one has integrity, that one is suitable, other than those two or three that you're picking, if that is the correct view and version that you'd want to advance, then that should extend until those people have been proven to be not suitable, not have integrity by the institutions. And then lastly, Trevor, is on this question of that Wetangula, Speaker Wetangula just needs to head count. That, in as far as that point is concerned, is correct but incomplete. Incomplete because he has to head count, and to complete it, he has to determine from the laws on his table that govern the rule of the House called standing orders, and from the law that he knows that governs this country, that is our Constitution, and any other statute. He has to determine also after the head count that I'm counting you in which coalition. Okay. That he has to make a determination. Right. Because then that's how you determine who is the majority and who is the minority. Okay. So he will not be far-reaching or outreaching or outstretching his hand when determining that this is the import or this is the impact of this document that was signed and that is presumed to have determined that you belong to this coalition. It is still his duty. All right. Task.
Sifuna, I'll give you a chance to respond to both Cherargei and Wamatangi before we move
Trevor,
on.
I long for the day when we as politicians can just have an honest, objective take on a matter. You remember this furor that was raised by Museveni's son over some of the tweets that he was making. And his father removed him from the position that he was holding. There was no court determination. There was no hearing. There was nothing. I have said that there is 3 criteria. We Kenyans are the ones who set that bar. That bar of Chapter 6, when you hear people saying we have abandoned Chapter 6, this is what is happening here. You can objectively determine that somebody is not competent. That is one of the 3 criteria. Competence is not determined in a court of law. We had a governor here for almost 3 years who had a so-called degree. So from an educational standpoint, the institutions that they're talking about, the guy is competent for the job. But everybody knows Sonko was not competent to be a governor. And it was determined by the day by day and the activities of the county is told, and so on and so forth. We are saying that we have 50+ million Kenyans. Half of those people are women. It is an insult. For instance, if you say you want to nominate a youth, you must nominate somebody who represents the very best in young people. You don't just give somebody a position because she's a woman or she's a youth or a man or whatever. These three criteria, my brother, I wish we went back to that chapter 6 and we said, as a country, we can be objective about Sifuna. There are things that Sifuna can do. I cannot go and, I can be a legislator, but I cannot perform heart surgery on you if you needed it. I have to accept that I don't have the competence. You understand? So all we are saying is we would like some objectivity. And I heard the president in his speech saying, even in his agenda, he needs bipartisan support. And I've asked my brother who's a leader in the Senate, can there be three things, just three things that we agree on as a Senate that objectively we need to do? They, in their manifesto, promised increase of resources to counties. We agree. Can we get it done? We agree the high cost of living is a factor, is a problem. We had promised within 100 days to do something. You have departed from that path. Can you come back and let us resolve the question of high cost of living, the cost of food, and the others? All I am asking, and Kenyans know this, they just want some level of objectivity. Three things that Kenyans can agree, both in the Azimio side and in the Tanga side, that yes, these are priorities for Kenyans. We don't have to like each other. I don't have to agree with your politics, but please, when you nominate people, can they objectively be people who can pass the threshold and send the signal that indeed the president wants to work? Because in my own view, because we have been told that he's a very hands-on president, when you nominate these people who you know very well cannot do the job, you are telling us that you are going to do the job yourself. Perhaps that is why he even needed to visit Parliament yesterday. Maybe he doesn't trust his speaker to write a ruling that is according to... Maybe he brought the ruling himself.
Now you're going into a whole different conversation.
Just a quick one.
You can't allow Sifuna to run away and make
We really need to talk about this.
No, you can't allow...
I was responding to what you say.
No, it's
Okay,
casting aspersions.
Okay, brief.
Even if President William Ruto wanted Speaker Senator Moses Wetangula to do anything, for example, in terms of ruling, he should have called him to his office, not the vice versa.
I said
but
maybe.
But now, you know, Kenyans will imagine the president brought ruling because a secretary general of an oldest party in the country, a senator of the city county, saying that he bringing the ruling to the house. That is misleading. The president, and I was there. Let me clarify to the country. The president, after launching Kenya Tea Development Authority regulations on tea sector issues and export, which we are creating markets, by the way, for tea farmers in Ghana and other countries, he decided to remember his days as member of parliament of the North North. And he walked to parliament, have lunch. By the way, incidentally, he had lunch with most of the Azimio members of parliament. And everybody was happy and comfortable.
Because we can be objective about lunch. There's no dispute there.
So by
just
the time,
lunch.
You know, Sifuna is a professional heckler. Can you protect me from Sifuna? You know, he has transited this to the house, but that is beside the point. What I'm saying is that the fact that President William Ruto walked into parliament, he also respects, by the way, let me say this as I conclude. All of us, including my brothers here, we are in leadership. And I agree with him that some issues need bipartisan. So the fact that William Ruto can walk to parliament and engage parliamentarians is very important. You remember the former president, our former party leader, President Uhuru Kenyatta, used to see elected leaders as irritant. Unfortunately, myself and Senator Wamatangi, we served in that parliament. He used to have disdain towards elected leaders. But you have a president who is now willing to listen to elected leaders. And I'm disappointed by Senator Sifuna when the president wants to inspect, is it Mukuru kwa Njenga slums, the upgrading of the housing. He never showed up. The women rep showed up.
I was not invited.
Jalango, Senator, the MP for Langata, Mheshimiwa Jalango showed up. But the senator decided in his wisdom, or lack of it, not to show up and say he was not invited. Yet the housing will benefit his voters. Sifuna, Sifuna, I want to advise you, you know the first time he came to Senate, he walked out. The only way to do oversight is not working out. It is engaging in a bipartisan, and I want to confirm to Senator Sifuna before before Kenyans, there are many issues that Senate has done through bipartisan. One is on the revenue formula. There are many issues we have agreed, the appointment of judges, many issues that we have agreed on a bipartisan approach as a Senate. So I want to advise my brother that let us stop making sweeping statements and casting aspersions against the president.
All right.
If you have to oversight the president, there are procedures and mechanisms like bringing a motion, bringing statements, and many other issues. Not saying it in some Kibandaski.
We really need to
Trevor, just before you leave it, I think it's good, and I think we have belabored the point, and we don't want to look like Sifuna has come to be the bad boy in the show.
But he's behaving like what?
You know, there are few facts that he would need to blend with his view, because some of his views are all right, only that he's filtering them only to suit what currently he would want to project. But if he would expand his view, then he would occupy the position he wants to occupy as a good, level-headed, foresighter of how we need to lead this country. I think the point that Senator Sifuna you miss, in my view, is that all those things that you say about how we should determine as leaders and as a country on the fate of people is precisely why we have the law. Because the law recognizes that we as a community, we are bound to have so many different views and perceptions and decisions about individuals based on what we personally perceive. And it is right to the extent that Sifuna may have perceived those people that they should be adjudged, as he says, that they lack integrity, that they lack this. And we all have those different views, and to the extent that they are our own personal opinions, we are right. But to the extent that they are applicable to a modern, civil, all equal society, that is why we have the law. Then that law determines that let people go through this due process. At the end of it, determine either of all those three things in various ways. And then you can be able to say you have a level playing field. So I just want to persuade him that if you leave that impression that we have agreed as a country that certain individuals, by dint of our own perception, are incompetent, unsuitable, or lack integrity, that would be wrong. And then lastly, let me say anybody who knows the reputation of Speaker Moses Wetangula in this country for all the time when he's been a legislator, and I think there is no one else right now. I think maybe people like James Orengo, maybe Bonnie Halwale and others. My brother Sifuna would be a baby in that pool. So he would hardly talk about the capacity of Moses Wetangula. And if you told any person in this country that Moses Wetangula is a speaker to be brought a ruling or a determination by hand by the president to read, you would be faulting the intelligence of many people. People know the reputation of Moses Wetangula. One is a renowned senior lawyer in this country who has handled big cases and handled them successfully. Number two, as a legislator, who has done superb work. And the contributions of Moses Wetangula stand out in the Hansards of the House of Parliament in what he has said. And in fact, when we were campaigning, he's called Papa Waroma Elias Kizungu Mingi. Because that guy is good in the mind. And so I don't intend to necessarily defend him, but I believe every Kenyan knows that Moses Wetangula is capable of reading and making his own mind. And neither does William Ruto need to write a ruling, because that ruling and determination of who is the majority does not require his interference. I believe, and I want to promise, I think most of the people who have not taken keen interest in learning how President William Ruto is intending to lead this country, I think there will be many surprises in his leadership, because he intends to undo the formalities, the norms that we know, and lead this country in a different way. So seeing him in Parliament may be just a beginning. We may be seeing a lot much more.
Sifuna, finally
I think I need to correct that impression that I have cast aspersions on the Speaker. I started this show by saying that I have a lot of respect for him. I know that he's a senior advocate, and all the nice things that he has said about Wetangula are actually true. We were discussing something totally different, and I just inserted that speculation on the presence of the president in the presence of Parliament yesterday. It has nothing to do with, I have a lot of respect for Wetangula, and I know he'll do a good job. That was a totally different discussion. Now, on the question of, you know, some issues have been raised by my brother, and I don't want us to spend too much time on this. Cherargei, I know you represent a county that can be called a rural county. I also miss the days, because in the rural areas, you could just walk into somebody's house. If they're having tea, they will give you a cup of tea. Here in Nairobi, you can't crash even somebody's birthday bash. It is out of order. Sasa kama you cannot crash a birthday bash. You imagine a presidential function. A senator from an opposition party. And you members who have been in parliament, you know how members of parliament are invited to state functions. I can show you the invitation that I got from the president when he was being inaugurated. I have the document. I just chose not to go. But show me an invitation for these other events. And I'm not the only one. Even when he visited Homa Bay. Our colleagues, let me finish. Let me just finish. In the National Assembly, I have colleagues there who also said that they needed formal invitations for this presidential faction. You cannot just crash there. You will meet people who will think, because there's still a hostile stance. And from the public pronouncements by the president, and especially by the deputy president, there is still a lot of hostility. And we in the opposition, people who don't support UDA, who didn't support or vote for this president, we just don't know what to do. I, Trevor, would not want to find myself in a situation where I have attended a function in my capacity as a senator of Nairobi. And the entire time, the leadership is spending time haranguing us about reminding me, oh, how you are the SG of ODM, you are the people in government, you are harassing us, and now you are going to see, putting us in our place, telling Sifuna, you cannot sit in the front row, you sit there in the back, this is not Azimio, this is not handshake. What we need, Trevor, is for people, especially the leadership. The leadership is the one that sets the tone for how quickly the country moves on. If every time, including in his address to Parliament, if every time the president comes before lawmakers, before any public function, he keeps reminding those of us who did not support him that he is here now, he's a king, despite and in spite of our intentions and wishes and so on and so forth, we are not going to be comfortable being around him. So he came to Parliament for his first address. Then he starts telling us, oh, you know, the opposition leader became the candidate for government, the government became... Those are things that have now passed. What we need to do is to change our attitude. Let the president realize that the question of his victory is still contested in many people's hearts, including my own heart. And let him realize that this victory of his, because it was such a close margin of 200,000 votes, there are very many people who are still hurting. Whereas we want the government to succeed. And I want to say this on Citizen TV. There is nobody in Azimio, nobody in ODM, who wants this government to fail. That would be akin to you wishing the pilot flying an aircraft in which you are also flying to do a bad job and to crash the aircraft. You will all crash. But what we need to see is some magnanimity, some grace. When you are on top, Matangi, like you beat your competitors in Kiambu by a proper margin. I don't see you every time you go, you tell them, nyinyi watu tuliwanyorosha. It is not necessary. You have already won. You were declared the winner. Just be magnanimous. I would rather not be in an event sitting there because I don't have to be there. The concrete on that Mukuru project, which, by the way, was started by Uhuru, will not stop drying because the senator was not there. Okay. My physical presence is not necessary. I am not the person doing the doors.
All right. No, let's move on from this conversation.
No, I agree with him. Just 1 minute so that we go to on-source revenue. I agree with Senator Sifuna on what he has said. And I will raise up with the president that in future, when he's, and there are standard and procedures within the presidency, that whenever the president or deputy president is visiting either his county, Nairobi City County, or rural county like Homa Bay, or rural county like Nandi, there should be proper invitation and proper sitting arrangement. So I want to ensure that's how civil societies operate. And I agree with him entirely that in future, and by the way, you saw Mheshimiwa Peter Kaluma, you know, I agree that most of these leaders, when the president be notified, made sure that sitting arrangements are organized, given a chance to speak. All of us are leaders in this country, and we want one nation, one indivisible nation under God. And I think that would be very correct. I agree with him on that one.
Brilliant. Omatangi, let's bring up this story.
The only point that, and he made good points, but the only one black spot that he dropped in the good talk that he made is to insist that the captain, whom you have very correctly said, and I also want to agree and congratulate you on that thought line, that you cannot sabotage the procedures, the work of your pilot when you are on board.
Yes.
That's a good way to think.
Yes.
But drop the line, and this is with the magnanimity that you have also called.
Yes.
Use the same magnanimity to also acknowledge that you cannot continue to say that the win of the captain is contested.
In our hearts.
No,
I said in our hearts, not in the courts.
You need to understand that word used, magnanimity. Magnanimity is not derived from a statute or from an instruction. It is within the self. And so when you say it is within your heart also, employ the same magnanimity and acknowledge that he won.
Yes.
It was a closely fought contest.
Yeah.
He won by a fair margin to determine a winner in the contest. It is won by the one who has a majority. You did well. You had 6 million plus, or 6.9 million, and we said that here before. You have very many people who voted for you, but we had more people who voted for us. That is the principle of democracy.
All right.
And you just accept,
You cannot
employ
matters of the heart.
employ the same
Allow us to
magnanimity.
heal at our pace. You can't put a timeline on it. You are legislating matters of the heart and emotion.
Heal at his own
But
pace.
you know, Sifuna needs to heal very fast.
No, Sifuna said allow him to heal at his own pace.
Sifuna, we are trying to prescribe and administer this medicine to help you heal.
I am self-medicated.
Let's talk about all-source revenue. Omatangi, I want to start with you on this one.
Ajigangi.
No, Omatangi, I want to start with you on this. There's a report by the Commission on Revenue Allocation, backed by the World Bank, shows county governments collect only 31 billion in taxes annually against a target of 52 billion, and underlying their inability to tap their own source revenue from residents. Kiambu actually has been mentioned here,
Yes.
which could generate 11.3 billion compared to the 11.72 billion that it gets from the national government, meaning
Yes.
your own source revenue can sustain your county, but that is not happening. What will it take for you to get to this level? Will you increase taxes on the people? What happens?
No, you don't need. Actually, if you look at the report and you study it keenly, Trevor, it has not based those numbers on an increment of any of the charges that are being charged.
Yeah.
Those numbers that have been summed up now, for example, for Kiambu to be 11.2 billion, is just based on if the county is efficient and if they are collecting and reporting all the revenue that they have collected from all the streams and seal all the loopholes where revenue is being plundered, where it's being stolen. That's all. And this is why you heard me say the last time. For example, like in Kiambu, you see we have been given a projection of 11.2 billion. We are barely collecting 2-point-something billion. So almost 9 billion short of what you're supposed to collect. And the fall fellow in this was, number one, the setup. Number two, to quote Jane Cherargei, the CRA chair, it is the tone at the top. Because what has been happening is that we got leaders in the first place who failed to set up systems that were intended to be literally efficient to collect revenue. Some of them corrupted the systems of collection for reasons that they were able to steal from the till. And that's why you find, for example, like some of the revenue collection systems that were input from the first regimes of 2013 were put in such a way that controls of some of those systems of collection were still not open to your administrators normally at the level where they're supposed to. You find that there were deals with some of the providers whereby those revenues were being collected by the provider, and then they knock off their figures, and then they pay the county. Those are the first systems that they implemented. So you find that you give me the job, I collect your revenue, I put it in my pocket, and then I come and pay you, and you're the county, and I knock off mine. After that, they again graduated to another level, whereby the deal changed.
Yeah.
That now, instead of doing that, you collect but knock off a very high amount. And some of those cases where there is underreporting, indeed, there are some systems that are controlled. Some of them can be manipulated by some of those providers outside your control and outside your knowledge. Such that you find that you have a revenue collection system, you are saying it is a good one, but there are other people who have switches and buttons out there so that they may manipulate that system the way they want. Number two, you find that there were areas where efficiency, just simple efficiency, introduce new proper systems whereby that revenue is collected and expressly reported. By way of even, like, for example, look at even simple shops. That a barber shop. A barber shop has a till number. You can, it's reliable. There are some of those revenue streams where you just simply put a till number, and all your revenue will be paid there.
Okay.
So I agree entirely with this report. We have people in most cases, in the majority of the counties, where you find people at the top there have designated a whole line downwards from where revenue is collected. And that money finds its way up to the guy at the top. And they have a kitty that they must receive every week or every month or even daily. So if you're collecting from parkings, you go, bring, and make sure that every day you bring to my office some 500,000. So initially, what was collected was 2 million. All these other will be shared and eaten all the way. By the time you receive your 500,000, everybody else down has fed on it instead of going back to your county. And that is why you had me quote the chair's words that what matters most is the tone at the top. Lastly, is on the intent to collect this revenue and the support national government should give. You find that in some of the areas, legitimately saying so, also national government should have supported counties in ensuring that most of the functions that have been devolved has also been supported by following those functions with the resources. Now, when that failed, and that's why you found that we had big problems in some of the institutions like hospitals, in health. And you see, this is one of the areas where the World Bank and CRA has faulted that we should be collecting a lot much more than we are collecting right now in health. What happened initially, Trevor, was because of the failure by national government to support the counties by giving them the resources for the functions and work they have given the counties. Most of the counties would go and collect money from hospitals and go and pay for roads and go and pay for toilet paper and go and pay for ballast and go and, because that is why you have quick money. You have been told that you must do the roads that go to the market, but you have not been given that money. That money has been given to other agencies, for example, like KERA, which was not efficient and has not been efficient even up to now, fully, in terms of maintaining those roads. Remember, there was also a big issue as to what share of national roads has been left with national government as opposed to the counties. For the record, the number of kilometers of roads which have been left under the hands of the county to make good, to repair, to maintain, to build, is twice as much as what national government has been left with. And then the opposite is true of resources. 3/4 of the resources are with national government, and only less than a quarter, I believe, is with the counties. So what does that tell you? It tells you that even that intention of ensuring that all our roads are motorable, that our people have what they should have at local level, is not feasible right now with the current arrangement because the resources still are retained at the top. And so I believe even to realize this, while as a governor, I acknowledge that we must do a lot. We must seal completely the loopholes of theft. We have to ensure that we widen the base and create efficient systems. Have very, very good collection systems which
Yeah.
cannot be either manipulated.
Okay.
But lastly, I also believe
Yeah.
that national government has to play its role by ensuring that the resources that are retained at the top go to the counties so that counties can also operate efficiently
Yeah.
within the designated areas that they're supposed to operate. And then that way we are going to have services for the people. And I want to implore, and I'm sure that our current president has got this very well at his fingertips and in his mind. He knows that for us to succeed in delivering the services we promised, that we have to ensure that counties are empowered, that governors and all the systems at the county government level
Yeah.
have been operationalized and supported.
Senator Sifuna, is this one of those things you're saying that you need to have unity of purpose? Because your county could raise 67.66 billion, winning itself off the 19.25 billion, almost more than 3 times.
Absolutely. I don't think that on this one there is any controversy, because as I told you, we all promised Kenyans that we were going to strengthen devolution, that we were going, in fact, to increase the revenue allocation to the counties. And we had the opportunity to listen to the chair of the CRA when she came for our induction in Nakuru. And she's the one who presented these figures, and I agree with the governor that actually the problem is that, yes, there are inefficiencies in the collection, but also that there are deliberate mechanisms that are put in place to divert resources that are actually collected in the counties themselves. So the question of inefficiencies, we've seen many governors struggling with how are they, the system of collection of this revenue.
Yeah.
I saw yesterday that Homa Bay has launched digital code for collection of revenue. It is something that has been tried here.
Yeah.
I saw my own governor now throwing out KRA out of collection of revenue in Nairobi. I have issues with that because, of course, it was done at a time when we didn't have the county assembly sitting. I just want to encourage, especially the governor of Nairobi, that all these decisions should be taken in a participatory matter, involve the county assembly, so that those critical decisions are not do not appear to be unilateral decisions. So I don't know, he has now brought back another private company for collection of revenue. We had an experience with Jumbo Play here in Nairobi. The arguments are that they were collecting more than even what KRA has been doing. We don't know how this new one is going to perform. But for as long as there is probity in the collection of revenue, there is enough money to be raised in the counties. And what then follows is that we must take care of the revenue that is collected. We were also told that Nairobi is one of those counties where almost 50% of the revenue, both collected and the one that comes from government, is actually spent on salaries. Yeah. I would want to see bold steps from the governor if he's going to ignore political expediency and in fact increase the money that is available for purposes of development, for purposes of health. You have seen the horror stories from some of our hospitals, including Mama Lucy, and we need all the resources. But for me, as a senator, whereas we grow the capacity of the county governments to be able to raise their own resources, I hope that this debate is not being brought about in order to cloud that discussion of unbundling of functions and actually sending money that is supposed to be devolved to the county governments. Let this on-source revenue not be an excuse, Wamatangi, for the central government to delay, because I am aware that, and we were told at the retreat, that you, as the Council of Governors, have already finished unbundling of the functions. Yes. We need that information as senators for us to be able to help you. And if indeed our brothers in the executive right now are the believers in devolution that they claim to be, I want to see an end on this question of government retaining functions, government retaining resources that should essentially be going to the counties. So we are here to support our counties. Let there be, and as he said, it is not, this report is not based on any more taxation. Yeah. It is just closing the loopholes and broadening the tax base. You know that we have problems with our valuation roll here in Nairobi. There are properties that don't pay their fair share of rates. Yeah. So if that is the conversation and not just targeting, because sometimes we feel that not just county governments, even the national government, when it comes to taxation, they just target the same same sources of revenue. So if you look at this report, it is just the usual things. It is outdoor advertising, it is property rates. I think we need to be a bit more creative. Instead of having to milk one cow until it drops, can we find a way of making sure we have a herd of 5 cows so that we get a liter from each cow? Okay. So I am hoping that there will be no more pain for taxpayers. I don't think the people of Nairobi can pay any more in terms of parking fees in the city. We cannot pay any more in terms of water. We cannot pay any more because we are already pushed to the wall by the current economic situation.
But Cherargei, where do you draw the line? Because like what Senator Sifuna is saying right now, in Homa Bay, there was that introduction of the digital way of collecting the fees. But then the immediate reaction from the people is that it's hard for us to do that because sometimes we have Fuliza, left, right, and center. So for us to load the money there and then pay the county, it's much more difficult. So how do you balance these two?
3 things. One, I want to confirm to the nation that the current president, Dr. William Ruto, and the current government, they have a goodwill for devolution. And you have seen even the deputy president will be chairing the IBEC. He has also confirmed, even in inauguration speech, that in future, he shall ensure there is no delay of disbursement to counties. I think the biggest soft underbelly to our counties has been delay in terms of disbursement to counties. Number 2 has been the issue of clawback clauses. You remember the National Assembly, at some point when I was the Senate Jailer Committee chair, we had to take National Assembly to court for passing 24 legislations which were not concurrently passed by both houses. And in fact, some of those amendments were part of clawback clauses that were undermining the principles of devolution. So we have a threat. And the biggest threat has always been the National Assembly, especially in passage of legislation. The other issue, despite that the CRA has talked about 216 billion that remains uncollected, that's a huge chunk of money. But I agree with my brothers here that that one should not be an excuse by the government not to release the allocated funds to counties. Because this is the Constitution is very clear that county governments have power to levy taxes. You have talked about the Homa Bay introducing digital collection. I agree there is still some challenges because maybe you presume that everybody has a phone. It is not possible in rural counties, as my brother Senator Sifuna would put some of our counties. But I want to say that with the current government, the president has confirmed in his manifesto that there will be digital highway, which means there will be a deliberate effort towards improving the use of technology in our country. And therefore, I allowed that move because, by the way, this collecting manually, there is a way some of these governors has been mischievous. I have sat in CPI, County Public Investment and Committee in the last Senate, even together with Senator Wamatangi, we used to sit in CPI. And one of the biggest challenges and one of the biggest audit query has been most counties do not meet their revenue targets by 50%. In fact, my own county, Nandi, is missing by 80%. For the last so many years, for the last 5 years, they are going to 60 years. So it means that either, there are 2 things, Trevor, either the governors have designed this uncollected revenue or have designed some of this revenue system for them to eat in quotes, or the revenue officers or revenue systems that have been put in counties are not effective and efficient. Because sometimes they use some of this technology, sometimes we are being told the systems are down, the provider of the software are maybe disagreed with the provisions or with with some of the service providers. So in my own opinion, I think since we have Governor Wamatangi here, he should be creative. Let us collect properly the tax rates, the land rates, the entertainment, the advertising, the outdoor. Let us be effective. And I think this should form the basis of the meeting in IBEC and the meeting in Council of Governors. Governors must be deliberate on collection of these taxations that we have. Finally, this on the issue of recurrent expenditure, I agree that most counties, in fact my county, over 65% are spent on salaries. This will always eat into development. And that is why you have had an argument, I don't want to call it a lazy argument, where people are saying CDF is doing much more. Is it called now NGCDF, National Government CDF, is doing much more than the county government. It is because county governments are spending more on recurrent expenditure. Okay. And that is why I want to urge governors, and I'm happy I've never seen Governor Matangi starting to fire anybody. In my county, 75% of the workforce are being sent on compulsory leave. Just like I want to call upon governors, let us not use this excuse to frustrate or fire people. We appreciate that the previous governors might have employed people irregularly, but there are ways that you can regularize that process without making sure suffering. And I've not seen in Nairobi, maybe Senator Sifuna is in a better place to inform the nation whether there is such a aim to lay off some of the staff. Because at the end of the day, Trevor, the economy is doing badly. So if you now lay off some of these Kenyans in our counties, where will they go? In as much as we are struggling with recurrent expenses. But I think we need to be creative. I hope this matter will find its way through the Budget and Finance Committee of the Senate so that we can have a substantive discussion with CRA and Council of Governors on how we can resolve.
All right, I'll give you a minute each for closing remarks because we've run out of time. Senator, I'll start with you, Sifuna.
Well, first of all, Trevor, thank you. I know that I feel like I sat on a panel with my lecturer who was anaweka tick moja, ingine anaangusha. But it's all well. I want to reiterate that the country should not despair. That in fact we as leaders are committed to ensuring that we assuage the situation. We will continue to remind the government, and we are part of it as legislators. We will do our part. That the most pressing issues, still remain the cost of living and ensuring that we get meaningful employment for our young people. So it doesn't bode well, and I know they will start screaming that I'm reopening debate, but the truth of the matter is that we had anticipated that in the first 100 days, at least there would be some, reduction in the prices of basic commodities for fuel, for unga and the others. We have not seen it yet. 100 days, I think we are at the halfway mark. We should be. We are just reminding you, Cherargei, and I'm happy that you have committed to carrying messages to the president as he still organizes how he will be talking directly to opposition leaders like myself. Please take the message to him that we still would want to see a very serious reduction. We didn't support the removal of the subsidy. Apparently, you told us that it is going to be some temporary pain for long-term gain. But Kenyans have been suffering for long. I don't think that it would have been wrong to retain that subsidy as you people still try and find your ways, because you told us you'd be ready on day one. But this thing of saying, oh, you have to suffer for a small time, we have suffered for long. We want unga to go down, we want petroleum to go down. Say hi to the president. Okay,
it's barely 2 months, no, but Matangi here, it's barely 2 months since they came in.
That's 60 days. Yes, we have 40 days to go.
I think my closing remarks, I would finish on what I wanted to say on this report by the World Bank and CRA. And I think this should be good news to the people of Kenya, that if the new generation of governors can pick it from here and start to actualize, we need to do away with a lot of what had happened in the past and set the country on this new tone and tenor of leadership. Then our people are going to have a better time. And I want to merge that with what my friend here, Senator, has said, that indeed then to actualize, to realize that promise and dream, we need to realize that we have two sets or two levels of government, the county and national. And it is the synchronicity, the symphony of the two. That's what will give us that dream to be real. Such that I want to say to our people that the way to actualize what we are saying, that within that 100 or 200 days, that we will have the basic cost of living lowering to a sustainable long-term level, is to ensure that we will intentionally put in lasting fundamentals, not cosmetic, not just immediate, not just shock therapy, so that you do some things that will impress people, that we did this when we said in 100 days. That's why I would not be quick to judge for this time what the president is doing, and indeed even what we will do at the county government level. The key thing to our people to understand is long-term healing from where we are coming from will require very good and tenured approach.
Yeah.
And ensure that all the things that were wrong, for example, and I want to laud what the president did in first halting funding of the major flagship projects, because they immediately don't have an impact to the current scenario that we have. And yes, they are there. You can now start actualizing them at a slower pace, but ensure that we send more of the resources to the base, and that is what we are calling the bottom. Ensure that our MSMEs, for example, you know, the guys in Juakali and whatever, the small mambogas and so on, that they will start feeling the warmth, and you can resource those people. That way, you will have an economy that will start to rise, and then gradually it will meet with the work of the big projects that we are doing, and then you can have a sustainable, and that's the key thing, that you can have sustainable, low-cost living.
Yeah.
But otherwise, what was happening before was we would take all our money to big projects all over the country, which is not necessarily bad, but which was not strategic for our current problems.
All right.
And I believe once we do that, then we'll start seeing the kind of Kenya that we want to live in.
All right, let's see some feedback. That's a lot that's coming through. I know, Senator, you have your 1 minute for closing remarks. But it's only been 23 days since the inauguration. So,
yes.
Yeah, briefly.
As we get the feedback, two things I want to assure Sifuna, I'll pass his greetings to His Excellency the President. I can confirm to that. Number two is I want to commit that the government is ready to lower the cost of living in a sustainable, strategic manner. We don't want just to lower for purposes of now. We want this thing to go into the future. We are coming from where the economy was dilapidated, and it is the friends of Sifuna who messed this country the way it is. But that notwithstanding, we don't need to look back. I want to assure the country the issue of, by the way, the short rains have begun, subsidized fertilizer are available. I can assure Sifuna, because he's a city senator, and as rural counties, we have started planting to ensure there is sufficient food within the city, and therefore the cost of living will come down if there is plenty of food.
All right.
So I can confirm to that. Finally is to call upon Parliament to fast-track the approval of cabinet nominees so that the government can start running, and some of these things can be put into place.
All right.
I agree with Sifuna. Let them keep counting the days. We shall deliver within 100 days.
There's a lot of it coming through. There might be some questions there that you might have to react to. Let's bring that on the screen.
Yes.
Godi Baraza says, Parliament is a house inhabited by experienced lawmakers. An interpretation of who has a majority representation shouldn't be a hard nut to crack. Let Speaker Wetangula exhibit his crude sense of wisdom on this matter expeditiously. Okay? Oringe says the determination of who has a majority representation in the House is the first big test for Wetangula. All eyes are on him to see if indeed he's an impartial arbiter. Okay. Sengeli Brand says the Speaker of the National Assembly, Honorable Wetangula, shall adjudicate over the matter solomonically. It's quintessential. He considers pre- and post-elections contracts signed by the parties in making determination over the matter. Okay. Kinywa Mushoki says how we are moving from agreements to Speaker's decision is fascinating. All this is happening because our political class do not have a defined identity. The only identity is with upande wa serikali. Okay. Atanas Mavuti says Azimio on Kenya majority National Assembly is on paper, but the actual members are in Kenya Kwanza coalition. Even if the Speaker declares Azimio the majority, it will be of no use since most of the members currently are allied to Kenya Kwanza. Tyson says Sifuna making sense today in laying down criteria for appointment, personal integrity, competence, and suitability. How we wish we could see this in all sectors. Okay. Dean Frank says the Speaker is well acquainted with the law, knows the truth, but now a wheelbarrow to the ruling regime and the art of sycophants wouldn't allow him to do the right thing. Okay. Remy Butia says, for avoidance of doubt, Kenya Kwanza has the majority of the National Assembly as provided for under Article 36(2), which provides that a person shall not be compelled to join an association of any kind. The Constitution of Kenya is supreme. Julius says, Sifuna is talking so much about integrity. Has he paid Wiper Party their dues, or he has been laughing to them as they cry? Is that outside integrity? Quick reaction. Yes.
I can confirm that we are owed no monies. In fact, when we posted our financial statements, you could see
the richest parties.
We are not rich. Actually, that is one other thing I want you to ask the president. Please honor the law and pay political parties what amount is owed. Right now, the government owes ODM 10 billion shillings.
Wow.
Yes.
You are very well.
So that is not wealth. That
It
is
has not
just a
been
debt that...
remitted.
yeah.
Okay. Okay.
All right.
You can pay us.
10B.
It has
10
grown
billion.
from the 4 billion that we were awarded.
But
by the
you
court.
need to also discuss with your boss how much of that you need to give back as rebate to the wananchi of Kenya.
Yeah, you give us first.
Because
Give us the money first, then we can have that conversation.
Let's bring up the
10
final
million,
feedback and
we
see.
could lower the price of unga.
As a subsidy.
Okay, Okelo
But for
Mwalimu
faith-
says it's time for both Kenya Kwanza and Azimio gave us a break from unnecessary talks of majority-minority side. The legislators must prioritize bills that benefit millions of paupers on whose backs they rode to the august house. Politics without policies is baseless. Dixon says, Trevor, kindly ask for me, the two lawyers, to direct me which page do I get the word opposition in our constitution. I only see minority and majority. All legislators are required to check the executive. Okay. Sawe says, let me ask Cherargei, what's the importance of Chapter 6 of our Constitution? When it comes to leaders, it's ignored, but the hustlers seeking employment, it is a must. It must be applied in totality or be removed across board. All right? Sifuna agrees. Thank you
Because
so
there are agencies that do that job. I want to assure
Thank you so much for making time
Now.
this morning. His Excellency Kimani Wamatangi Kiambu, Governor Honorable Edwin Sifuna, Senator for Nairobi, and Honorable Samson Cherargei, Senator for Nandi. And thank you.